everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome to more of our end of the year coverage here at the Dice Tower. Today we're taking a look at our best top 10 games that are reprints from 2019. Before we do that, a couple shout outs to folks who backed our Kickstarter. I want to say thank you to Josh and Christy Bach, Tom Stickland, Matt Linfante, and all the wonderful game gurus at Bastard Cafe in Copenhagen, Denmark. So thank you guys. We appreciate that. So reprints. Okay, so let me explain. Reprints, games are reprinted all the time. A lot of games are reprinted for various reasons. Many times there's a second print run, a third print run. But I'm not talking about that per se. I'm talking about games that are another edition, that there's usually some sort of special change. Maybe it's just components, sometimes it's rules, sometimes it's both. And that's what we're talking about. This was a fantastic year for reprints. There are many great reprints that are not going to be on this list, like Mississippi Queen, Las Vegas Royale, Run Fight or Die. The one I really want to call attention to is the Suburbia Collector's Edition, which is a really, really cool one, but I didn't have a chance to mess with it too much, so I'm just giving that one a special shout out. So we're going to get started here, though, with the top 10 reprints that came out in 2019 that you should check out. Let's get started.
Number 10.
All right, first of all, we have the classic, a game that came out a year after I was born, and that is Dune. Now, this one's kind of a surprise that this one came out at all, that this was reprinted, because for a while the family of the author was just refusing to allow people to remake the game. So much so that Fantasy Flight remade the game system itself with the designers, but called it Rex and used the Twilight Imperium universe, which is really nice. This is a very bare bones version of Dune. It's not bad at all. Definitely, it's probably better quality than the original version of Dune itself was, but they changed a few things. There's a few minor rule changes, but it's really well done, and it's for a fairly inexpensive price point here. So Gale Force 9 did a good job of putting this together. The original designers are on board with it, and not a game that's probably going to get to the table a lot for a lot of people, but those who are big fans of it are certainly glad to see it back in print. So my number 10, Dune.
Number 9.
I'm not sure we're ever going to go through a year of this without mentioning Restoration Games, since that's pretty much what they do. They take older games and restore them and bring them back. And so they're on the list more than once. The first time here is Conspiracy Solomon's Gambit. Now, this here is a game in which there's a suitcase around the board, and you are trying to maneuver the suitcase, getting it to your side using the spies and having them work for you. I remember playing this way back in the day as the first one. It was a neat idea, but Rob Daviau, who's a master at reworking these older games, took this one, and it's still very similar to the original one, and yet you are working against the other people, kind of playing a four-way tug-of-war with this suitcase, and also trying to bust different agents on the board. There's some really neat concepts. It's definitely a very family weight game. It's about as far from Dune as you can imagine with the weight of the game. But it's one I think that a lot of people will enjoy. I don't think a lot of people played this one last year, actually, but it's a cool little game. That's Conspiracy, the Solomon Gambit.
Number 8.
One of my favorite games of all time is Ghost Stories. Love Ghost Stories, a cooperative game in which you're fighting against ghosts. They remade it this year. I wasn't expecting them to remake it with a different theme, but they did. Last Bastion. Really the same artist, Piero, who did the art for Ghost Stories, did it, and he still managed to make it horror-ish. Yes, it looks like a fantasy thing here. You see the dwarf jumping to fight all these minions and stuff, and it's definitely a fantasy element to it. But inside the game, it is when you look at the artwork on the cards and stuff, but it's still 4 heroes defending, in this case, a village from all kinds of monsters coming at you. A cooperative game, a hard cooperative game. They changed some of the rules, made it a little harder, actually, I think. In many ways, didn't need to be harder, but what have you. This is a great game. I'm glad to see it back in print, and it's a really high-quality production. It's the same company, Repos, who did the original Ghost Stories, so glad to see this one back. Last Bastion.
Number 7.
This next one is the newest addition to the list, and it's one of the oldest games on the list. One of the games that came and turned the gaming world on its head when it was first released as big, heavy Euro games, although nowadays this game wouldn't be considered big and heavy at all, and that was Kahless. It's now been reprinted as Kahless 1303. So this game here, which has a much nicer cover than the original one, which looked like boredom personified, but this game, which has been revamped and redone by the designer William Adia, it has a much better look to it. Everything is cooler and crisper, but the gameplay itself has been vastly streamlined. It's still the same game. There's still a provost in it. The provost is still a jerk. You'll still hate the other players who use the provost. If you know what I'm talking about, you got to play this game because it's that. And I don't know if this game's going to make a splash amongst all these bigger, heavier, cooler Euro games that are out there, but I like this. It's a nice reimplementation of Kahless. I'll probably never play the old one again because this one just does it in a cleaner, faster style. Feels like a 2018 thing. It's a very interactive worker placement game, one of the most interactive ones you'll ever play. It feels like it could have been designed in 2019, but it's not. It's just, like I said, it's a reworking of older one. I think some people are going to miss this one. And the folks who put it together, Space Cowboys, who make some of the best games out there. And this one kind of flew under the radar. I knew it was announced. I heard a little bit of talk about it, not a lot, and it plays really well, and I check it out. Kahless 1303.
Number 6.
The next one is a game that I've been begging for them to remake for a long time, and when it first came out, it had some of the highest component quality of any game in existence, except it kept breaking. Well, the new one still has that high quality components, doesn't break, and that's Catan Starfarers. It was originally called Starfarers of Catan, but why not get rid of the unnecessary preposition? Catan Starfarers is a much more involved version of Catan, in which you have a big map and you are flying a spaceship around that map, as you can see here, and going and exploring planets. And then you have this giant spaceship. You don't fly that one around the map. That just represents you, that you are adding upgrades to: guns to help fight off pirates, engines to fly faster on the board, rings to hold more cargo, point tokens. And it also has these little balls in the bottom, and occasionally you'll shake those to see how far you move, but you also sometimes will run into encounters and you deal with that. It's definitely longer than Catan, but it does have some really cool theming to it. I mean, this is a space version of Catan. It's not just a pasted on theme. And the new component quality is just great. Now, like I said, the original one was really cool, but broke all the time. They fixed all those problems, and if you've never played this one, and maybe you're not a big fan of Catan, I'm not as big a fan, I'd much rather play Catan Starfarers.
Number 5.
Number 5 is about as far from the original game as I allow them to be on the reprint list. In fact, some people might even argue that this is not really a reprint. It's just, it waved at the original game, maybe. From Restoration Games, Unmatched. So the original game was Star Wars Epic Duels, or if you find the very, very rare Transformers Epic Duels, whatever it was called, was you pick different people from Star Wars or Transformers and had them fight each other. Well, that license has gone away. Now you pick King Arthur or Bigfoot or Robin Hood or Alice in Wonderland, or as they're going to be adding, you could get Bruce Lee this year, and they'll be having more Jurassic Park and stuff later on. But you take them and you fight someone else. It's a 2-player tactical game. You can play more, but it's a 2-player tactical back and forth game where you have a deck of cards. Each character is extremely asymmetrical. And so Star Wars Epic Duels used a lot of dice chucking. They got rid of the dice. They made it just a card combat system. And they added in, I mean, the board is different, the line of sight's different, the characters are different, but at its heart, it's the same game, and it's actually designed by the same designer. Rob Daviau is reworking his own game in this instance. Unmatched is a lot of fun. It's that, lets that kid in you say, hey, I want to fight Sinbad against Medusa. I want to see Bigfoot against King Arthur. And it allows that matchup, and I'm sure we'll see many more from them, especially with Restoration working with Mondo Games and getting a lot of the licenses, the intellectual properties with them. So I'm excited to see what's coming out this year. Like, we know Jurassic Park is coming, and I'm sure there's more behind that. And so that would be pretty cool. And I like this one a lot. This one, like I said, kind of a reprint. I'm going to call it that. Unmatched, my number 5.
Number 4.
We have a couple games on my list where I never actually played the original one, but the reprint is so fantastic I have to mention it. Number 4 is Agiza Shifting Sands. Now, actually, I got the Kickstarter version of Agiza Shifting Sands, which came with the rules and a board for the first one, which I looked over and said, nah, I'm good with the new one. Agiza Shifting Sands is a really, really beautiful game, which I don't often say about Egyptian-themed games because they usually like yellow board, sand. But this one is a river. You are moving your boats down this river. You are collecting cards and building monuments and obelisks and sphinxes and scoring points. But this one, the new version streamlined it slightly. The component quality is here. And it just fits in today's society. I'm actually going to be reviewing this game fully this week, so take a look at that one. I like it. I'm kind of tired on the Egyptian theme, although it's not in as many games as it used to be. But this one is really well done. Great artwork, great production, and I like the idea of placing workers, and you can go as far down the river as you want, grab a great thing, but you might not get to, you might skip other stuff and give it to the other players. Nice interactive game, Agiza Shifting Sands.
Number 3.
This was a year for me in a sense of games I wanted to see get reprinted were getting reprinted. And this next one, man, I've been waiting for this one to happen for a long time. And that is On the Underground. The original print was fine, it was done back in the day before Kickstarter and stuff. It was an independent thing about moving someone around on a subway system. But the new version from Ludi Creations is fantastic. And what they did, instead of just being in London, they now added the Berlin board. The pieces have been upgraded, but it is essentially the same game. I don't even know if any rules have changed in it, other than there's a few different ways to score on the Berlin side of the board. But this is one of those games that I find extremely fascinating and entertaining. Now, I like it best with 2 or 3. The game goes higher than that. But just as you place these subway lines out and trying to convince this lunatic passenger, lazy dude, to ride your subway lines is just fun. It has a little bit of that forward-thinking logic in it. But the production has one of the coolest covers of the year for sure. The production overall just makes me really happy. On the Underground, my number 3.
Number 2.
Number 2 is one of the biggest jumps from original box size to the new box size. I mean, maybe Suburbia might have done that. But this one, I never played the original game. It's a small game. People constantly said, Tom, you need to play this. You'll like it. And I said, I'll get around to it. And I never did. But now I'm playing the reprint, which is, I think, poorly titled, actually. It's Glenmore 2. But it's really Glenmore 1.5 is what I'm sensing from it. There's Chronicles and so it's the original game with some minor, well, you can call them major changes, but it's still very much Glenmore. And then they added Chronicles where you can add different rules. It's basically a bunch of little modules in a box. Wow, this game is fantastic. Moving around the board, again, it uses that thing. I can move as far as I want to, but then I'm going to let the people behind me move slower and get more stuff. But I want to move farther ahead because I want to get those tiles and I want to add them to my little grid in front of me. And even has some weird things like I can build this little kingdom, but I got to be careful not to build it too big because that may come back to haunt me at the end. Amazing production, really pretty artwork, very evocative feel to the game, which is not really that thematic. It's yes, that cover looks super thematic, but the game is essentially about putting tiles out and trying to maximize your points. But just across the board, this is one of those games that when I play it and put it on the table, I'm like, yes, I'm very satisfied with this. I was blown away by this. A little sad that I didn't play Glenmore way back when it first came out, but that's okay because now I got the second edition of it, and it's fantastic. My number 2, Glenmore 2 Chronicles.
And finally, number 1.
Not often that I agree with Z sometimes, but I have to say that one of Z's top picks of the year is my number 1 reprint of the year, and that is Atlantis Rising. Now, I played the original Atlantis Rising, and I thought it was fine. I was not so floored with it as Z and Sam were at the time. They both enjoyed it. I thought it was fine, but nothing to write home about. I don't know that I've ever written home about any games. But the point being, when I played the new version of it, it was upgraded in every way. Immensely better artwork. better components, smoother, faster gameplay, tenser, cooler gameplay. Just every check box was checked off on how much better this reprint was. So I may not be as super enthusiastic about Z. I think he gave it a 10 out of 10, right? But I think it's pretty good. I give it at least an 8 out of 10. This is a solid game, but what puts it at the number 1 on this list is how it's better than the original, I think, in every way, and yet it did so without being this super deluxe version. Of course, the super deluxe version is going to be better than the original game in many different ways, except for the fact you got to stick it in your backpack and carry it around. This one looks like a normal game, but in so much better ways than the original one did. So Atlantis Rising, a super fun, cooperative game, and just so glad to see this. This company now, Elf Creek Games, is one that I'm watching to see what they do in the future. Pretty pumped about their upcoming stuff. So, those are my top 10 reprints of the year. I'm going to jump to your comments now. Is there something that you think I should have put on the list or something that I missed? Like I said, there's a lot of different games that came out over the course of this year. I just saw the Castles of Burgundy reprint came in, which was nice-ish, but there's no way that was making my top 10. Run Fighter Die had a reprint this year. Democker had a reprint this year. What are some other ones that came out that you think I should have put in the top 10 list? Now's your chance to mention those for those of you watching. Well, you can't abbreviate it because I don't actually know what all the abbreviations stand for. PAX Premier 2nd Edition, I saw that. It looks really pretty, looks really good. Everyone who played it said it's fantastic. I just haven't had a chance to get that one to the table. Pret-a-Porter, that one is probably 11 or so on the list. That's fantastic reprint too, and all praise to Ignacy for doing a great job on that one. Definitely one that should be mentioned, Pret-a-Porter. Marco Polo, I don't consider a reprint. I mean, yes, it's about 1.5, but it's a very different game in many ways too. Fireball Island didn't come out this year. Snowdonia, this is another one I cut from the list just because it's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I haven't played the original. I haven't played the new one yet either. But, I mean, it's fantastic looking, but it's like a mega deluxe version, just like Suburbia. So, yes, those are fantastic games. But I wanted to put games on the list that are more like ones you might actually stick in your collection. Big City is another one that's pretty cool looking. Coffee Roaster, I never played either one of them. Irish Gauge, was that a reprint? I hated the game, so it's probably not going to make my list. 1862, well, again, I haven't seen the new one out at all. And Vindication did not come out this year. I don't think it was a reprint anyway. It came out for the first time last year. So, and I think, well, it looks like those are all the ones that I missed or talked about, but there's a lot, and I'm sure there'll be some mentioned in the comments after this video goes up. Thanks so much for watching, folks. I'll be back tomorrow with another top 10 list, same time, same place, and in 40 minutes, me and Z are going to come back and talk about one of the greatest years of gaming ever, 2012, and as we continue our retrospective of the decade. I'll see y'all next time. I'm Tom Vasel. Thanks for watching the Dice Tower. Have fun gaming.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.